In 2018, Mississippi resident Calvin Parker came forward with details about an alien encounter he had 45 years ago. In his remarkable story, he describes a craft descending upon him and a friend. Two alien beings then floated towards them out of the craft, until they got close enough to grab them with large crab-like claws. Sounds terrifying. Calvin reports feeling that at first, but soon he was overwhelmed by a sense of calmness, which lasted the duration of the encounter. An inexplicable tranquility, a daze-like state, or unexplained blackouts leading to lost time. Almost all alien encounters seem to share a bizarre change in mental state similar to what Calvin reports. Skeptics are quick to use these claims to dismiss stories as delusions or psychedelic drugs at work, but might there be something else at play here? Might these feelings be induced to keep an abductee calm? Human veterinarians do something similar when dealing with cows. They use a hug machine to keep animals sedate during examination. Is it possible there's a high-tech version of this hug machine that an alien species is deploying on us? Yes. To my surprise, even us humans are well on our way to unlocking the secrets to reading and controlling the mind. Inside the average human brain, there are around 85 billion neurons. Each neuron is connected to anywhere from 1 to 100,000 others, creating an incredibly complex web. Signals are passed amongst this web via electrical impulses, firing off in each neuron. These impulses start in one neuron and flow to the other connected neurons. The movement of electricity causes a magnetic field to propagate perpendicular to the flow of energy. Current technology isn't advanced enough to be able to track the individual electrical and magnetic fields produced by each individual neuron, but we can hook up electrodes to the skull and get a coarse view of the collective electric activity in regions of the brain in what is called a EEG, or we can use strong magnometers to detect the magnetic signals given off by neurons in an MEG. Even with this high-level view of brain activity, we are able to tell quite a lot. The collective signal for all the neurons in the brain is referred to as the brain wave. The general frequency of this wave corresponds to various distinct detectable mental states. On the one end is gamma activity. This is a state of heightened perception or excitement where brain activity spikes from 32 to 100 times a second. On the other end is delta activity. Here, brain activity only spikes 1 to 4 times a second. Delta activity is associated with periods of deep sleep and loss of awareness. We can infer more than just generic mental states by examining these brain waves. Specific motions, like moving one's hand, can cause a clear detectable change in the specific bands of brainwave frequencies. Interestingly enough, even just thinking about moving one's hand can cause the same changes in brain waves. This phenomenon is what drives the emerging trend of brain-controlled interfaces, cutting-edge technology that you may soon see in features like controlling the cursor of your laptop with only your mind. EEGs and MEGs give us a great overall picture of brain activity, but we need a different tool to get a more precise view. Luckily, scientists have figured out a way to do this. Neurons need fuel to fire, and they get this fuel from the blood supply. More firing means more fuel needed. An fMRI machine detects the iron in blood, thus can show the movement of blood in the brain over time, and this correlates very nicely with neuron activity in the brain over time. Although this doesn't get us to the individual neuron level of granularity, this does give us a fairly detailed map of which areas of the brain are firing and in what pattern. And here's where it gets downright spooky. Researchers have identified the visual processing area of the brain, and by processing the fMRI activity of a subject, they can accurately reproduce what the subject is seeing. As you see here, the people in the fMRI were shown the top image, and the bottom images are what were reproduced by just the brain activity. When a subject is just imagining an image, this process still works, albeit to a lesser degree. It's literally plucking an image out of your mind and showing it on a screen. Not only can we detect thoughts and pull images out of one's mind, we can also control one's actions and thoughts to some degree with current technology. An electric motor works by flowing current through a coil of wire, inducing a magnetic field which moves a magnet. If you do the opposite of this, move a magnet around a coil of wire, you get the reverse. You induce an electrical current and get an electric generator. The activity of neurons is similarly reversible. Just as neurons firing give off magnetic fields, we can direct a created magnetic field at neurons, inducing or inhibiting them from firing. There are medical devices that accomplish this. They are called transcranial magnetic stimulation devices, or TMS. While, like MRIs, TMS devices do not target individual neurons, rather they target specific regions of the brain. Still, the device produces quite remarkable results. By stimulating the motor cortex, you can induce movement in an individual. And by stimulating the visual cortex, you can induce flashes of light. Scientists have gone so far as to hook someone up to an EEG machine, have the machine listen for a hand movement, and transmit such signals to another subject a mile away hooked up to a TMS device targeting their motor cortex. When the first subject moves his hand, the EEG detects this and sends a signal to the TMS device hooked up to the second person. The TMS device stimulates their motor cortex, causing the second person to click a button. With this brain-to-brain interface, the two people were able to successfully play a missile defense video game, where the first person was seeing the video screen and the second person was controlling the video game input. TMS therapy has also been shown effective in treating a broad range of mental illnesses, such as Alzheimer's and depression. These treatments are thought to work by stimulating and jump-starting rusty areas of the brain. The effects of TMS are still not fully understood and is a very interesting field of current study. Using TMS may cause long-term profound changes in individuals. For example, a recent study reported that TMS caused a large decrease in religious beliefs among subjects. EEGs, MRIs, and TMS are all still orders of magnitude away from being able to precisely target individual neurons in the brain. But imagine for a second if you actually could record the firings of each individual neuron in a brain. Then, imagine taking that activity pattern and replaying it, that exact pattern, onto someone else's mind. In theory, that second person would be experiencing the exact same thoughts and consciousness as the first person. Now you may be asking, is the data collection and manipulation needed for this level of mind control even theoretically possible? Yes. At least according to a 2019 paper published in the scientific journal Neuron. The paper, co-authored by 8 respected neuroscientists, poses the question, can one concurrently record electrical spikes from every neuron in a mammalian brain? It goes on to answer, yes. Although current capabilities do not allow for it, recording the activity of every neuron in the brain is physically possible. And, like electrical systems, if you can do it in one direction, the reverse is also possible. Still, reading and controlling the mind of a consenting patient willing to be hooked up to things like MRIs or TMS systems is one thing. Doing it in an uncontrolled environment to an unwilling participant is another thing entirely. Although clearly out of reach of current capabilities, one could imagine advanced devices that could accomplish the monumental task. Perhaps, as we now cram 8.5 billion transistors into the CPUs of an iPhone, advanced technology could exist to shrink antennas and receivers to the nano level such that a wireless device could record and transmit the simultaneous activity of 85 billion neurons. If such a device existed, it would likely be operating on frequencies that match the width of a neuron, such that a single beam could target an individual neuron in the brain. And this is the exact same frequency that To the Stars co-founder and scientist Hal Puthoff believes that the one public UFO fragment is associated with. This fragment has thin layers of bismuth alternating with magnesium. The materials line up with that of a metamaterial waveguide for terahertz frequencies, the exact same frequencies that would likely be used to target neurons. This type of waveguide would allow for lossless transmission of a terahertz signal, perhaps acting as a conduit to transmit brainwaves to a processing unit. However, these same frequencies would also be extremely useful as a general analysis tool for biological organisms, so this alone is not enough to suspect nefarious brain control mechanisms being used by extraterrestrials. It does stand to reason, however, that any extraterrestrial visitor would be keen to have some awareness of the inner minds of the biological beings here on Earth, and would soon figure out the connection between brainwave activity and mental states. The prospect of introducing delta brainwave patterns from afar to induce states of relaxation, tranquility, and sleep do not sound that far-fetched, and would be incredibly useful to any advanced species that took an interest to us. The mental phenomenon reported by Calvin and others would thus make perfect sense. Like an artificial hug given to a cow during a vet examination, the alien abductees are similarly lulled into calmness through magnetic neural stimulation. And although true mind control does sound theoretically possible, I'd wager any alien species would not take that level of interest in us. They'd likely see us as cows chewing our cud here on our terrestrial planet. Humans, on the other hand, I think we should all be very well aware of the cutting edge of technology here, and hopefully, our technical knowledge doesn't outpace our ability to intelligently use it. What do you think? Are these technologies something to worry about? And do you agree that aliens wouldn't have an interest in controlling our thoughts at a specific level? Please comment below. As always, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to Rather Be Squidding for future videos exploring the realms of alien possibilities.